His vitals at the time of admission were normal. His saturations were 88% on UA. He was started on supplemental oxygen and low molecular weight heparin 40 mg.
This is the date of admission after this.
October.
You know, written here. I written here. No, admission in this hospital.
Was it 1st October? Yeah, 1st October. It was not written.
Then it would have been much clearer.
Yeah, the timeline,
1 week back.
timeline.
This was the X-ray on 8th October, which showed bilateral non-homogeneous opacity suggestive of consolidation. Pulmonary medicine opinion was asked on 9th October for the same radiological findings, for which we have started the patient on tablet augmentin 625 mg PID and tablet methyl 16 mg PD. Later, pulmonary medicine opinion was again asked due to the worsening of shortness of breath and sudden fall in saturations on 11th of October. Vitals at the time we posed the patient, it was pulse rate was 80, BP was 170, respiratory rate 38 4 cycles per minute, saturations were 90% with 8 liters of oxygen. On auscultation, there was decreased intensity of breath sounds on the right infrascapular area and absent breath sounds on the left side. And the X-ray showed left-sided pneumothorax with the mediastinal shift to the opposite side. As the patient vitals were falling, the sudden falling saturation was suspected as tension pneumothorax, and we placed 24 number intercostal drain on the left fifth intercostal space, after which the lung has expanded. Later, the patient was reviewed regularly. On 14th of October, intercostal drain showed no air column movement, for which we suspected tube block, and we reinserted the same number of 24 number of ICD in the left intercostal space, after which we repeated an X-ray. This X-ray showed bilateral air fluid levels, for which we suspected hydropneumothorax, and we advised for CT chest. The CT chest showed bilateral loculated hydropneumothorax with also peribronchial consolidatory changes. Later we tried for needle orthocentesis and we could not aspirate air or fluid. Later, as the patient is having loculated hydropneumothorax, which is located posteriorly, we have to place ICDs posteriorly, as it is not convenient for the patient to be present with both the intercostal veins at a time posteriorly. It is not convenient. We have asked the patient for thoracoscopy.
So, can we just go into the patient again? Like, what happened after that period?
Pulmonology people advise thoracoscopy. I myself personally went with the patient to KHL Ilbinagar. So I spoke with the CT surgeons for thoracoscopy. They told there is no observed indication for this patient. So they resent the patient back to here. Again we admitted here in our hospital.
After that, what happened? We'll call Dr. Akshay again. Please take a seat here. So let's finish with what happened to the patient.
As after this event, we placed the chest tube left-sided.
Yeah, I think we must thank the pulmonary department for putting such a good chest tube, and there's a complete expansion of that massive pneumothorax. Just look, show that the previous. This is the column moving well. Okay, so the column is moving well, and the X-ray is showing that it has expanded very well. See how beautifully it is expanded. Big pneumothorax mediastinal shift has been completely reverted back. So that's a very good job done by the pulmonary department. And what happened next? Yeah, they said that they wanted thoracoscopy, you couldn't get it. After that?
Then after this, the patient was advised to go to Tertiary Center, Hyderabad, but the patient went to his hometown where he due to cost affordability and other issues.
He was asked to go to tertiary because of the thoracoscopy. But we ourselves took him to a tertiary center where they said it was not intelligent. Okay, so there is some confusion there, isn't it? Fine. What is
This is a series of X-rays within the hospital stays. How is lung function?
showing the progression of the
Progression of
disease. And finally the hydropneumothorax, which is
This
the
is-
last X-ray? Last, that is on.
15, sir.
So here, is it showing hydropneumothorax
No,
now?
sir. No, it was shown on 18th and 19th.
So after they put the tube, but there was some posterior hydropneumothorax still present. Is this the?
This is on 14th, sir.
This is before the tube.
Yes, sir. After the tube.
After the
sir.
tube.
After the tube.
Okay, so let's see the last part of the thing after the tube. So these are the loculi which were unattended. I mean, we wanted to remove them so that again the lung would expand better.
Posterior.
So this is the reason. One reason is we could not put two tubes, and thoracoscopy would have been better there. So what happened next?
After this, the patient was referred to higher center, sir. Then he went to his hometown basically, and then he admitted in a hospital there. Just by just by giving some antibiotics and supportive measures.
So he
Without
improved on his
doing
own.
any-
Slowly, the body healed itself.
Body healed itself.
So
Without
let us
doing
look
any
at the.
intervention.
So was this the last X-ray we sent in? No. This was the first. Ah.
22nd was the last X-ray. sir.
22nd. Okay, this was the last X-ray. So yeah, we can see the hydropneumothorax very well bilaterally, and he went home with this. Let us say he just went home, and from whatever news we got, he recovered. And do we have any X-rays? Did he WhatsApp you any X-rays? His current X-ray. This is his current X-ray. Oh, that's fantastic. So the body healed itself. It just took care of the accumulated fluid and the air, and it just went away on its own, isn't it? So that's the end of the story, isn't it?
The treatment.
So now there are a lot of aspects to the management of this patient. So we learned a few things, that even if there are some hydropneumothorax pending or residual hydropneumothorax, I have recovered also, and it could have been a completely different story. But currently in this patient, this is what it was. And what we now, I think, need to discuss is the management of COVID per se in terms of pharmacological and non-pharmacological. As you saw in this patient, non-pharmacological was the ICT drainage, and he did not require the ventilation part. But that is also something which can be dwelled upon. Yes, Sai, anything more? Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can you use the mic?
At the time of diagnosis, what is the CBP?
Ma'am?
Complete blood picture.
What was the complete hemogram at the time of
First,
diagnosis?
at the time of
You showed
diagnosis.
it once and you said it was normal. Can you show us again?
Can you-
Yeah, this one. Just click on that.
Differential count.
Show us what is the differential.
Initially it was 9,700 pounds. 9,700. Then it's at the time of discharge from there.
No, differential count.
Differential count.
Neutrophil, lymphocyte.
Neutrophil they mentioned.
Acha, not mentioned there. Okay.
Actually, it is even the viral infection and discuss lymphopenia and
Yes. So the differential count is important that way, that it can tell us about the lymphopenia. Oh, we have forgotten the pathology. Yeah.
What
Okay.
is the cause for lymphopenia? Generally, viral infection lymphocytes will be there. And the bacterial infection will expect the neutrophils.
Neutrophil.
But here it is reversed. What is the reason for it? Can you so many times I am getting the doubt.
So I think we had forgotten to invite the pathology, because this is essentially a hematology question, and they will be answering this question as well as whatever they had planned to present. Can we invite the pathologists to come over? There's no proper evidence for the nucleocytic lymphocytic ratio, the neutrophil lymphocytic ratio.
The reason is not known according to the study. I'll be talking about the histopathological changes in lungs and kidneys. So these are taken from the pathological study which is done through the post-mortem core biopsies. There is desquamation of the alveolar epithelium and formation of the hyaline membrane, and formation of thrombus is seen. And there is fibrinoid vascular necrosis, and there is abundant inflammatory infiltrate in the alveolar lumen. And the histopathological changes in kidney shows the loss of rush borders in the proximal convoluted tubules, and there is also accumulation of necrotic debris in the lumen. And there is vascular degeneration of the tubular epithelial cells, and collection of necrotic debris is seen in the lumen of the tubular cells. Inflammatory cells are seen in the tubules, and there is thrombus formation in the glomerulus. These are the studies.
Yes, I guess in pathology, most of the pathology which we see is more of a non-specific sepsis cascade, which would have been seen in many viral illnesses that go into that sepsis point of no return. So when any viral infection goes into ARDS, be it a viral or even a parasitic like malaria, they would also go into ARDS and they would produce a very similar kind of a picture. So pathologically, I don't think there's anything specific.
What about thrombus formation?
Yes, thrombus formation has been a huge contentious issue because it has led to a lot of over-treatment in the current scenario. And of course, the house is divided on this even now. But yes, more and more reports are coming in of thrombus formation. But we have to understand that they are just reports, isolated case reports. But we are not seeing it in totality. If we look at other viral illnesses like dengue, Ebola, malaria, any ARDS, I mean the parasites even, when it happens in ARDS, there is, when we look at the pathology, there will be some thrombotic changes, even in any cause of ARDS. So this is actually non-specific. But we have focused more on the thrombotic things. In fact, there are some vasculitic syndromes also reported with COVID. So they are just the body's immune response, which is triggering this kind of a cascade of events, which is also leading to thrombus. But whether anticoagulants are useful or not, that is something which the medicine PGs will be, hopefully talking about. I think each and every medicine PG has prepared one drug, the evidence around each drug, to present to this house, and we will soon be moving into that. So any questions to our pathologist before we move to that?
Pathogenesis, it's already been discussed.
CT and X-ray in Elginagar hospital. We have not found the cause. We have not answered the question of why this patient had pneumonia.
Yes.
Why the subcutaneous emphysema?
Yes, a very good question. I mean, basically, why did he have the pneumomedius? This would be very unusual for COVID. I mean, it's a one-of-a-kind thing which we saw in this patient. So, what was the reason for that?
Ruptured bullae was the
Ruptured bullae where? In the mediastina, how does that come?
Ruptured bullae, they have reported it as very ruptured bullae. That means they have presumed it. But actually there was no bullae or anything. And on the second presentation to our hospital also, there was loculated hydropneumothorax. So even for that, we don't have a cause. So are we missing something?
So, what would be your explanation, pathological explanation for that? Like this kind of a pathology, where you have subcutaneous emphysema and you have, of course, the pathology of COVID there. So, what was the sequence of events in this patient? What do you think? Any hypothesis is welcome. I have my own hypothesis. Once all of you get a chance, then I will probably. So, Ajit, what is your hypothesis? lungs. So if you have ruptured bulla, you can explain the hydropneumothorax at the bronchus. But how do you explain the pneumomediastinum? It has to come from some mediastinal source, and that is the trachea.
Tracheitis was one of them.
There are no features of tracheitis on CT scan, and no bronchoscopy or tracheoscopy was done to say that.
Yeah, so it remains a hypothesis. But is there any other way a pneumomediastinum can form other than a tracheal perforation? What are the other?
Esophageal perforation, but not in this.
Yeah, here also esophageal perforation is less likely. So, I mean,
Not intubated.
yeah, he was not
Not
intubated.
intubated. So we cannot attribute it to mechanical ventilation and those kind of.
So ideally, if we had done a tracheoscopy or bronchoscopy, or if we had gotten an ENT department to do it, but unfortunately he was not there at that time with us. He was in another hospital. So at that time, if the ENT had looked into his trachea, perhaps they may have diagnosed or found out that he had tracheitis severe, and they could have even located a perforation. But at that time, it was not done. So our hypothesis remains that probably he had a tracheal perforation from which all this thing has erupted. Short of any other, yeah. Huh? Yes, that was later. That was after he came to us when his inflammation went on to the lower terminal bronchioles and probably the alveoli, the inflammation, and that is when it was endobronchial symptoms. So that was much down, much further down. So initially when he had all these problems in LB Nagar, at that time it was not, there was no hemoptysis. Isn't it?
Excuse me, from whatever cases we have seen, the chances of tracheal perforation are very less. This might have caused because of his excessive coughing, leading to some minor tears like
Yeah.
infection. Extensive perforation kind of thing, we don't expect such a
Exactly.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, but then excessive coughing, how would it give rise to pneumomediastinum? I mean, unless
Excessive
there is a
coughing or
perforation.
anything like this means inflammatory changes are like the one which you are seeing, right, paratracheal one, any cystic lesion, they might rupture, leading into the mediastinal airway accumulation and all.
Yeah, but what organ would have been that? The cystic lesion in the lung, you mean, or the bronchi or the trachea?
Lung is the primary thing, sir, which later might have led to the development of pneumothorax.
So some lesion in the medial surface of the lung, which could have gone into the
the one which we
mediastinum.
are seeing in the right paratracheal.
Yeah. So something in the medial surface of the lung, which could have ruptured and ultimately, but then it's all due to inflammation in that area. Some inflammatory lesion which just ruptured. Yeah. So we have come to the concluding part of the discussion, and currently what we have left is the evidence around the current therapeutic modalities. So that's a huge responsibility of the medicine department to talk about those. And meanwhile, would you like to also mention, because there is an interesting thing about that patient. There's another patient we had very recently who tested positive. So there are a lot of admin issues in this patient. So would you like to mention, I mean, share that patient with us before we move to the treatment discussion?
70 years old male was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease who is on maintenance hemodialysis. He possibly acquired an infection from the hospital or the treating team where he tested positive for RT-PCR. This seems to be like
Where have you kept the, is it in your logbook? Is it in your logbook? Somebody else's?
This is a 70 years old male chronic kidney disease, diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, who is on maintenance hemodialysis since 8 months. One day he was presented with complaints of shortness of breath, sudden onset shortness of breath. And actually we thought it to be a pulmonary edema, as he is own hypertensive, class pulmonary edema. But this X-ray shows these consolidatory changes.
So the interesting part is we thought it was a cardiogenic pulmonary edema. As usual in our dialysis patient, they are very prone to it. So we thought it was part of that. But the only thing which made us suspicious was that he was not responding to dialysis. Because as soon as we do dialysis, these things just disappear like magic. But on the other hand, it continued to increase. So we had to think of some non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. And the only thing we had in our disposal was to do the COVID test, and that turned out to be positive. Now, this patient has already been dialyzed so many times, so we have these issues around, segregating dialysis patients of HIV, HbSAg, HCV. So, this is a new issue. What about COVID patients who are on dialysis? So, this is an issue specific to microbiology team, nephrology team that we have to ponder about. And of course, the same machine would have dialyzed so many other people. So, dialysis as a vehicle for COVID transmission. That's a new kind of issue we want to highlight for the microbiology people to report on. Would Madam like to speak something about this? Yeah, you can keep it on the X-ray.
Sir, dialysis machine, whenever they unknowingly, every patient will be having some or other disease.
Yes.
But after dialysis, they will actually, the entire circuit they will disinfect. So they have that mechanism. So how to disinfect the entire circuit. Even the dialyzer, it is not reusable. So the dialyzer actually they have to throw away. For example, if for one patient, if they want to reuse again, so how to reuse that mechanism is there, they are following. So it is, even if it is a COVID or any other virus, same mechanism of disinfection will be there. So I have told now this is an enveloped virus, it is very least resistant. So that means even bacteria are there. So bacteria are more resistant to disinfectants. So it is an enveloped virus with normal mechanism of disinfection that is actually works good for these also.
So that's very important, ma'am. So vis-a-vis HIV and HbSAg and HCV, what are the chances of their getting less disinfected or more disinfected as compared to COVID? I'm not sure about the envelope of the HbSAg.
All are enveloped viruses.
Yeah, all are enveloped.
HIV virus and COVID,
Yeah.
all are enveloped. So they are susceptible for alcohol. Just that is envelope is made up of lipid. So whatever lipid solvents you use, so they are useful for that.
So this is bringing us to a bigger issue of why we are then not allowing dialysis on HIV, HbSAg and HCV patients. We are actually refusing to do it.
Yes, sir. Separate dialysis machines for HCV patients mainly. They used to keep, because just generally will not the disinfection process. Actually, it is a.
It's not foolproof maybe, and
No, it's not like that, sir. It is foolproof, and we have to disinfect all bacteria and viruses.
so madam, you're saying that we can actually use all dialyzers for HIV, HCV, HbSAg along with normal people.
If they use proper protocols.
So it can be done.
But generally they will give separate machines.
So madam, we need your help to dialyze our poor HCV, HIV, HbSAg patients, because many of them we just have to refuse them, and it's very pathetic to see them dying on the streets. I mean, just because we are not dialyzing them.
No, sir. Administrative aspect is there in this one.
So that's why we
So
call the
separate-
administration here.
Separate
I think the
dialysis
administrative PG is here.
dialysis machine. Previously they have kept separate dialysis machine. So if they want to keep one, that is well.
I don't think currently we have any separate dialysis machine for the other viruses. And the number of machines will keep on increasing. One for HIV, HbSAg, HCV, now COVID.
No,
So-
sir. For HIV, hepatitis B, C, all together they used to keep separate one. So, but now why they are not?
Screening CTs. HRCT screening, which should be done before surgery, and of course before any medical procedure also we are insisting. So what is with it?
It is not recommended.
Yeah, it is not recommended. So here what would the surgeons like to say? So the question has gone to you.
Before surgery.
Put the next slide. Next slide.
Next slide.
Last one, no, but after PCR only, in emergency
Next
we are
slide.
doing,
Last slide.
in emergency we are doing CT chest, but otherwise RT-PCR.
Actually, routine
Cell phone,
screening.
whoever is using cell phone, please keep them inside. Don't hold your cell phone. Whatever purpose they are using. Even if
Indian Radiology Organization, Radiological Society of North America, they are not recommending. Next one.
no, actually it is in the process of evolution, you can say, how to take precautions. Like initially we thought it will spread very fast by touch. All those things now they are disappearing. It is mostly by direct transmission. So now in evolution, in OT when we are operating, it's a closed circuit. And whenever the virus comes inside the OT, that will keep on spreading there only. And in closed environment, we don't want to take a chance. That's why initially we were depending on a CT. Now we are doing the HR, just RT-PCR, we are taking up the cases. Not all the cases are being.
No, but sir said that when in emergencies the patient comes, and
emergency
RT-PCR not
because
available.
evening perforation comes in the night.
Yeah. RT-PCR not available, so we resort to a CT scan.
It will take time. So if the HRCT shows some Corat 6, 7 like that, then definitely we will hold the patient back.
So what does
if it
Dr.
is
Venkat
HR,
say to that?
up
There is
to
one
Corat score 2 we are operating.
There is one pitfall or caveat to that, sir, because most of the societies who are recommending CT, who are not recommending or recommending CT, they say that CT, if done within the first 5 days, is going to be negative, even if the patient has COVID. So if the patient is
What is
subjected
your
to CT
experience?
in the first,
What is your experience?
my experience is I think
I
we
have
should
seen
not
in
do
first 5
CT.
days lot of CT is positive.
No, sir, I feel that we should not do CT. We should not rely on CT at all.
Not delaying, I am saying we are seeing the first few days when the patient is ill. The CT is done. It has no positive like Corat 4, 5 like that. After that people went for probe swab, then that came positive. So we cannot be very have fixed opinion. Still there are a lot of things are not clear about COVID.
So, but one thing I want to tell, like HIV, sir. So HIV will be there as long as we are alive. So we are taking precautions for HIV. Even COVID also may leave.
So
for-
universal precautions.
So
I don't
universal
think
precautions.
it will be like that because we have seen all those these coronaviruses. They are coming as epidemics only now, like MERS and MERS and all those things. So I feel this will go off. It will not be like like HIV or then SBS, hepatitis C.
So, but it is some lesson, sir. So may not be this virus, maybe some other virus also. So go on getting mutated, and they are crossing the this one genus. They are from animal to the human. They are crossing and they are coming. So here afterwards also that we are supposed to face those things also. But what I am suggesting is universal precautions is must.
Yeah.
So N95 mask you have to wear within the OT theater so that the transmission will be.
As somebody was mentioning, with N95 mask, oxygenation is going to go down gradually over a period of
No,
time.
sir, for 4
And by
hours.
repeated hand washing, already you only explained what are the pitfalls in that.
No, repeated hand.
So, see, why India death rate is less and why Indians survive better because of our innate immunity.
Yes, that is definitely.
Why it is not there in the South African countries? Why it was not rampant in the what is that in Mumbai? Dharavi. Why it is not? Because our innate immunity.
Definitely.
Now once we follow all this, we will become like Russians and we will suffer more. That's what I feel.
No, sir, OT means we cannot avoid even emergency. So we are not asking for RT-PCR or anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes we may not be able to do. But precautions is must.
See, in operation theaters, in the patient contact, we should take the contact.
Take precautions
Not in
and
the general public when we go, it becomes very, very difficult.
even the whatever we will take it away and we'll dispose there
Yeah.
only. And for respiratory also we have to wear a mask. Like that, otherwise asymptomatic cases sometimes may not be able to do that.
Correct.
Sir, if you don't mind, we can this to last. Because I think medicine, role of medicine is much more important than.
So we will now move to the ES, but whether the inflammation, the cytokine storm, stimulated by the virus is going to be blocked or influenced in any manner by the steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs is what we need to find out. So with that, I would like to invite the medicine PG who has prepared the efficacy of steroids.
Sir, we would like to start with the drug which created a boom word, hydroxychloroquine.
Okay, fine.
I will invite Dr. Ashmita.
You are prepared on each drug,
Yes, on each and every drug they have prepared.
evidence based.
Good afternoon, one and all. Actually, the 8 clinical trials were done till now based on the steroids, but no evidence is shown that it's protective in case of COVID-19 patients. But mostly it is effective in COVID-19 patients who were severely ill patients, like who were ended up in ARDS and who were on mechanical ventilation. And because of this, who are with comorbidities like diabetes, the corticosteroids will induce the hypoglycemia. So it is not recommended in the patients with diabetes. And the studies were showing that it's not so beneficial in overall.
Yeah, sure. Tell us something more about the studies, like how many patients, particularly the one in NEJM which influenced a lot of people to start using steroids. Of course, they also did it in the.
184 patients. It was a randomized control study, out of which
You're talking about the one which got into NEJM. Okay. And these 7,000 patients were for one country or different places?
so it is conducted in 8 countries actually. This was out of which 2,104 were treated with dexamethasone, 6 mg daily once for 8 to 10